Who would like to read?
Eugenius H. Bunny.
Did you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. You don't hear us.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay, so
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Can
have
you
it
hear
on the
me?
wrong setting.
Okay.
Okay, so from the top of the page,
Yes.
5 years earlier, Baba had noticed a gray hair on Mara's head, and he had told her sister, Franny, to pull it out. Now Mara had a streak of gray above her forehead. Baba did not like it. What can be done about it, he asked. Now that we're going to the west, it doesn't look nice. The only answer was to color it. Go ahead, Baba instructed. He told Franny to buy something. It was a horrible Indian preparation. Mara had to wash her hair, mix the powder, wash it in, and leave it for a certain time. It was a mess. Baba had said to dye it, so she did, whether she liked to or not. Over the years, the streak grew in size, and Mara continued to dye it, as Baba never lifted the order. At a meeting on 10 July, a few of the men Mandali were told about the women accompanying Baba to France. Chanji noted the news of taking the ladies to the West was disclosed with strict instructions of not revealing it to anybody outside. The primary reason for all the secrecy was that Baba did not want Shireen Mai, Gul Mai, Franny Masi, Dowlat Mai, and Franny to insist on being taken also. Rustam was only informed the day after Baba sailed, and he informed Franny, who became highly agitated.
I'm sorry, I lost my place. Where are you?
I'm on the sidebar there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Franny, who became highly agitated. He informed Franny, who became highly agitated. When Gulmai was told at Sangamner, where she was being treated by an Ayurvedic doctor, she was shocked and terribly shaken and disappointed. She was especially hurt not to have been included, as Baba had once promised to take her to the West. So back to the text. But vaccinations were required then for such a journey, and a woman doctor came to the hill to give them. There was also the matter of getting the women passports. Chanji was sent to the passport office in Bombay to inquire whether the women could have their passport photos taken with them in purdah, that is, wearing a veil or scarf across the lower portion of their face. He was told that the photos would have to be without their faces covered. Never thought of that. I wonder what they do now. The solution in Mara's
I don't
case.
think they go anywhere.
Yeah, poor things. Wow. The solution in Mara's case was that her picture was taken with her wearing a pair of glasses. This not only extended Mara's seclusion by keeping her face, quote unquote, hidden to some degree from male immigration authorities, it also prevented Mara from seeing any man, as the glasses had prescription lenses, which blurred her vision when she went through customs and immigration. And there's a dagger there Little further down, Tina, yeah, on the sidebar there, on the description page of Mehera's British passport is written profession, religious. So back up a little bit. There we go. The author asks Mehera, after all the years in Nasik and Meherabad, were you glad to be going to France? Yes, it was a change from all the years of confinement, Mehera admitted. But even though we didn't walk about, even in the compound, and just waited for Baba to return from the Mandalay, still we were so happy and content to be in Meherabad. Mehera loved Baba so much, Goher commented years later, that she thought that the thought never entered her mind that Baba was too strict. At that time, it didn't matter to her that her life was so restricted. She was obeying to do so. Mehera's nature was to be out of doors. It was a great sacrifice for her to be in such strict seclusion. Always, wherever she was, two girls must be with her, waiting outside, even when she went to the toilet. Not to read or write, it was very difficult. But she did it, that too, without thinking that it is hard on her mind, because it was pleasing Bob. Meru observed,
We can't hear you.
especially Mehera, had to go through. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Meru observed, only the early ones know the tests and trials they all, especially Mehera, had to go through when Baba's orders were so many and had to be strictly obeyed if they wished to stay with him. Going on to page 343, Mehera herself commented, in Baba's ashram, there has to be someone who undergoes some kind of strict order. Mani added, Mehera had to do very difficult things in her life for Baba. She went through very strict times, times of great self-denial, through a period of strict inner discipline. With Baba, it is not always outer discipline, but inner. Yet, even through that, we knew that Mehera was special, that her role was special. Mani concluded, Mehera's role as the queen, as it were, had not been an easy one. Baba has tested the mettle of each one by what each has had to go through. It is a role from the past. It isn't forged from this life. It is formed and forged from past lives. The grace is not a thing that you earn. From
It is when you please the beloved.
Yeah, the grace is not a thing that you earn. It is when you please the beloved. It's a role for each and every time the avatar comes. The stage is set, the play is done. It's only the players who are left to be put in, and who gets the role is according to his Baba's work. The role doesn't change. Sometimes it's been easy, sometimes it has not been easy.
We can't hear.
Baba made it very clear. Through Mehera, Baba has been able to do his work, which is the main thing. Baba always said his work came first. To make his work easier, instead of asking questions, we should have just gone along. It was like walking a tightrope in those days. One of the Urdu ghazals that Baba enjoyed hearing had a line which said, "To get color from henna, the henna has to be ground." So too, to get dyed in the spiritual path, one must be ground also. Yet there was that joy, even in the new life, there was that freedom of being with Baba. You wouldn't want anything else. Our only fear was that Baba might send us away.
And there's some pictures. Upper Meherabad by the water tank, 1937. And then Baba and Mehera.
Probably as Krishna and Radha.
Right. Upper Meherabad, 1937.
Baba and Mehera up in a tree.
Yeah.
Trimbach.
Wow, Shireen Mai washing Meher's feet.
And there's the picture of Mehera for her path.
That's cool. She looks studious there, like a doctor or a lawyer. Next
Okay.
read, please.
You want to pick up Rosalie?
Yeah, I also want to say we have someone else here. Eva's come to join us.
Oh, Eva.
Eva.
Hello, J. Baba.
J.
Hey,
Baba, Eva.
And I wanted to add, I love that picture of Mehera wearing those glasses. But can you imagine how difficult that was to walk around with and having that
Oh,
blurry?
yeah, yeah.
She was
Wonderful.
indeed, she was the eighth wonder, wasn't she?
She was. Ship seclusion. In June 1937, Meher Baba started sending back some of the Westerners, such as Margaret, Kitty, Delia, and Ruano. By the time he and the women Mandali departed for France, only 7 out of the original group of 16 Westerners remained to accompany them. Norina, Elizabeth, Nani, Rano, Jean, Malcolm, and Tom. Also going to France were Kippy and Canute, the 2 dogs, and Rustam and Franey's second son, Falu, who was being sent to England for his education. I need more words, Tina. Norina, Elizabeth, Nani, and Rano drove to Bombay on 29 July to make preparations for Baba and the Eastern women and booked rooms at the Regent Hotel at Ballard Pier. Baba and the 6 from the hill, Mehera, Mani, Khorshid, Naja, Sunamasi, and Walu, left by train the same day. At 2:50 p.m., all were unwell. Khorshid and Naja had a fever and left without washing their hair. The sidebar says the Regent Hotel is no longer in existence. Rano had been instructed to meet them early on the morning of 30 July in front of the hotel and to make sure that no men were nearby. Rano rose at dawn, but outside the hotel, she was dumbstruck by the sight that met her eyes. Bodies of sleeping Indians covered the veranda, the landing, and the steps. She could not wake them, for where would she tell them to go? Instead, she prayed silently that no one would wake up. When Baba arrived, before he and the women stepped out of the car, Rano told him that there were corpses on the veranda. Baba told her not to worry and instructed the women to just be careful and step between them, which they did. They stayed in the hotel that day and night. Kitty had been sent ahead to France in the first week of June to make arrangements, not only for the 3 houses required in Cannes, but also to safeguard the women's privacy aboard ship. Before leaving India, she contacted the SS Stratnaver's agent in Bombay and explained the situation. At her request, the manager of the P&O lines sent this letter to the ship's purser. 23rd June 1937 to purser SS Stratnaver. In care of messengers Mackinnon, Mackenzie and Company, agents P&O S&N Co. York Street, Colombo. Dear Sir, regarding Sri Meher Baba and party, I have received the following advice with regard to the above party, which includes Americans and Britishers and British Indians. The chief points with regard to this party are 1, vegetarian food for all. 2, food to be served in the cabins for a party of 8 ladies who will not mix with any other passengers. 3, Sri Meher Baba and Secretary Chanji also eat in their cabins. I understand that this party are all booked on G deck and have also been given the assurance by our agents that only stewardesses will wait and attend on these 8 ladies. The sidebar says, Narina and Rano were to remain secluded with the 6 Eastern women. Elizabeth and Nani could have their meals in the dining room with the other passengers. Baba and the group left the hotel at 7:30 a.m. on 31st July, boarded the Stratnaver an hour later and sailed for Marseille at 1:20 p.m. The Eastern and Western women were given cabins 563, 565, and 567. Mehera, Mani, and Khorshid shared one cabin. Naja, Sunamasi, and Walu were in the second, and the 4 Western women in a third. Baba and Kaka were in cabin 574, and Tom, Chanji, and Nilu were in 572, all on the same deck. Jean and Malcolm had a cabin elsewhere, near Falu's, who most likely stayed with Adi Jr. Once they were safely on board, Mehera recalled, we were all happy that we were going to France. While the boat was still at the dock, A stewardess brought a meal of Indian-style food. We want to thank you and show her that we are also educated people. Oh, I'll repeat that. Mehera says, we must say thank you and show her that we are also educated people, Mehera said. In Gujarati, she instructed Mani to smile and say thank you after each dish was served on their plate. Mani, who was also convent educated, felt slightly affronted that Mehera thought she had to point this out to her and replied, well, of course I'll say thank you. After they ate and began to unpack, the boat started. When they were out to sea, Baba came to their cabin and gestured. The boat is rolling a bit. Does anyone feel giddy? I need more words. Mani said, no, Baba, not at all. But Baba's power of suggestion made Mehera begin to feel seasick. I'm feeling a little funny, Baba. She climbed into her berth. Once I put my head there, I didn't get up. I couldn't keep anything down. There was no basin in our cabin, but there was a chamber pot, which Mani quickly brought over. At that moment, the stewardess came in. All the style and grace and thank yous we had said to show how mannerly we were went out the window. I forgot everything and vomited. Mani had said, wait until the stewardess left, but I didn't care. I couldn't hold it down. I was too miserable to care what the stewardess would think. Although they were traveling third class, their cabin was comfortable. The only drawback was its location, directly over the engine room in the bowels of the ship. The loud grinding sound of the powerful engines and its steady vibration were unceasing. They could not change rooms and had no choice but to put up with it. Baba had ordered Chanchi to book cabins in a secluded area of the ship where they would be less likely to encounter other passengers. Chanchi booked us cabins with no air right over the propeller, Rano noted, which made a constant gurring noise every time it rose out of the water. I and others were very ticked off at him about this. Mani said our cabin was over the engine, very secluded. Though we were going abroad, we were still leading a very cloistered life. Rano and Narina kept keeping watch so we didn't touch or see men. For some weeks, Mani kept a diary, briefly noting their daily activities. August 1st, on deck for an hour from 5:30 a.m., Mehera seasick and miserable. August 2, rougher weather, all seasick. Over the next few days, Baba came often to their cabin to ask about Mehera. Bending over her berth, he would inquire sweetly, did you eat? Well, he was silent, so someone must have said it or she heard it. Narina informed him, Baba, she still can't keep anything down. Baba told her to bring orange juice, and he gently administered it, teaspoon by teaspoon, into Mehera's mouth. Keep it down, he urged. Don't bring it up. Said Mehera, it was such an ordeal for 8 days. A night light was kept burning, and Baba peeped in during the night also. Since Mehera was not well, she switched from an upper to a lower berth. She was not permitted to go out of her room or to the bathroom, which was down the corridor. The noise and the vibrations from the engine contributed greatly, greatly to Mehera's seasickness, and the chamber pot in their room was often full. Mani volunteered to clean it, and each day Norina escorted her to the toilet with the heavy porcelain pot, which had a lid. This led to an amusing anecdote. Mani explained, because of our restrictions, whenever we left the room to go to the toilet, I had to have a towel or something covering my face. I could just see my hand and Norina's elegant shoes, but I had to follow her. Here is this princess, Norina, whom everybody knows, such friends with the captain, being followed by this strange woman with a towel on her head and a full chamber pot, held with both hands at arm's length. Norina must have felt so embarrassed with me under the towel. She tried to walk so quickly to keep away from me as much as possible so that people wouldn't associate her with me. I had to keep up. The faster Norina went, the faster I went, because if I lost sight of those shoes, I wouldn't know where I was going. Oh, Norina would say child or darling when she was exasperated or wanted something. And on the third day of this, she whispered to Mani, child, must you carry that chamber pot like a bouquet? Mani recalled, I felt like saying, well, you try it. This chamber pot is so heavy, but I was too timid. Mani and Khorshid had to be escorted to the bathroom. Any more words? To wash their clothes also, either by Norina or Rano. They washed their underwear and socks in the basins, and even a few of their smaller garments. One day, Norina accompanied Khorshid to the bathroom and told her that Rano would come to take her back. Khorshid was in the toilet when Rano, who was wearing slacks, came inside. After Khorshid finished, she opened the door, but when she saw a pair of trousers, she jumped back into the stall, thinking a man had come. 2 or 3 times Khorshid peeked under the stall door, but each time she saw the pants, stayed where she was, and prayed that the gentleman would go away. Rano left and came back to the toilet several times, wondering what in the world had happened to Khorshid. Has she fallen down the hole? How much time is she going to take? In the meantime, Khorshid was wondering when Rano would come for her. Finally, Rano knocked on the door and asked what she was doing. I'm so glad you've come, Khorshid said, visibly relieved. There was a man in here. Rano had been ordered to stand guard outside Mehera's cabin also, in case a drunken passenger stumbled by. When she took up her post, she asked the stewardess what she did for seasickness. The stewardess said that she swallowed a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Rano asked her to bring a tablespoon and a bottle of it. I'll read the sidebar. One night, Norina too was told by Baba to sleep on the floor outside Mehera's room. A tipsy male passenger tripped over her in the middle of the night, having gone down the wrong passageway. The door of Mehera's cabin had been left open. I need you to raise it. The door of Mara's cabin had been left open for ventilation, and Norina hurriedly steered him away. Okay, now let's see. There. In the mean, course, oh, let's see. There were no stools or chairs in the corridor, so Rano sat on the floor with the bottle of Worcestershire sauce between her legs. She had decided that even before she felt sick, as a prophylactic measure, she would take a spoonful of it. Just as she poured it out, she felt someone peering over her shoulder. She turned to find Baba. "What are you doing?" he asked. She explained, and Baba said, "All right, drink up." She did and felt fine for the rest of the voyage. Once, without permission, Rano went up on deck for some fresh air. Baba and the Mandali appeared. Baba looked at her in surprise and asked, "What are you doing here?" "Down you go, back to your cabin." Rano said beseechingly, "I'm just getting some fresh air. There are so many in the cabin." "Nothing doing, down you go." Later, Baba did allow her and Norina to come on deck for a few hours each day. "In those days, I was still green," Ranu admitted, "and did things like, without his prior permission." Baba often said, "All I want from the West is love." But later he became stricter and demanded our obedience also. Baba himself went on deck occasionally, looking dapper and debonair in a Western suit, a scarf around his neck, and his braid tucked under a beret. He played table tennis with Audrey Williams, who already knew of Baba and happened to be on the ship. "While you're sick, I'm playing ping pong," he told Mehera. "And when the ship rolls," he joked, "I play even better." Audrey was a young Australian ballet dancer who had met Baba on one of his previous trips to the West and had come to India in 1933 with the other Westerners. But during this trip, as Mehera and the Eastern women were in seclusion and not well, Audrey was never taken to see them. They saw her on deck when they disembarked, but did not speak with her. And after this voyage, Audrey never saw Baba again. Can I turn the reading over to Eva? Eva's a good reader.
Oh, okay.
Sure. Thank you, Rosalie. You are too. Actually, you all are. As the days went by, Mehera continued to be seasick. The main reason being the rocking of the boat. The voyage so far had been particularly turbulent. It was monsoon season, and the Arabian Sea was rough and stormy. From their porthole, the women could see the waves crashing against the boat. One day, when the weather was calmer, Baba asked Mehera if she was feeling better. And when she responded, "A little better," he wanted to show her and the others the ship. Because of Mehera's strict seclusion, they were awakened early in the morning at 2 a.m. when they were not likely to encounter other passengers. Nevertheless, not only did they have to get up out of their sleep, they had to put on makeup also. "Who would like to do this at 2 a.m.?" Mehera commented. From way below in third class, they came up on deck. Shanji and Kaka, formed the advance party, walking far ahead down the corridor to make sure that no one was coming. Rano went next. She could barely see Chanji. Behind Rano were Baba and the women, who could see Rano, but not Chanji and Kaka. The women were taken everywhere, but it was so dark that Mani almost missed some steps on the staircase. At one point, she was crawling up the stairs on all fours. As expected, very few people were about, but they did notice one person lying on the deck, which a few sailors were swabbing before putting out the deck chairs for the day. Baba led them to the lounge and dining rooms, and then up the top deck, where there was a small tennis court. It wasn't cold. We all sat on the deck for a little while, Mehera said, and had their first unimpeded panoramic view of the ocean. Mani added, Baba had a nice walk up and down the deck. No matter where we went, on a veranda or a long open area, Baba liked to stride up and down, up and down. They stood along the rails, and the sea air was refreshing. But when a storm began approaching and Mehera saw the clashing waves, she said to Baba, I can't look at the sea. I'm feeling very giddy. You feel sick? Baba asked. Yes, I feel nauseous. And so they were rushed back to their rooms. To add to Mehera's discomfort, while she was ill in bed, the stewardess locked the porthole. There was no breeze inside the cabin, and it was always dark. Mehera had to ask one of the other women what time it was. I didn't know if it was day or night. It was terrible. I nearly died. I wanted fresh air. When I opened my eyes, all I saw was a darkened room with 4 little berths. I would roll over, see the closed porthole, and feel worse. When Mehera complained that the darkness and the lack of air were making her worse, Rano and sometimes Narina, looking lovely in pearls and a gorgeous gown, was sent to the captain to get an extra key to open the porthole, unbeknownst to the stewardess. When the stewardess brought their meals, she was not pleased that the porthole was open. Who has opened the porthole? The girls explained that they enjoyed the fresh air and that they had requested the captain himself to let them open it. But the stewardess said, no, you must not open it. It's quite stormy today, and your berths will be sprayed with salt water. After she left, they opened it anyway, and when she came back, she shut it again. It went on like this throughout the voyage. Portia too had begun to feel queasy. As arranged by Kitty, every meal was brought to their cabin, but Portia found it difficult even to look at the food. She tried to eat, but she felt nauseated. For several days, just as they started to eat, Portia started to throw up, and Narina had to help her as she vomited in the chamber pot. Narina had to leave her meal to empty the chamber pot, Khorshid related, feeling guilty still. She never grumbled, but did it with all her heart as a duty for Baba. Khorshid, however, was seasick for only part of the journey. She would eat a little, feel sick, and then be all right again. Mani and Naja, on the other hand, were never ill during the voyage and enjoyed every meal. Sunamasi and Walu were also unwell in their cabin with nausea and vomiting. When Mehera was feeling better, Baba said, "Come and see Masi and Walu." He helped her stand and led her across the hall to the opposite cabin. And side note, Baba ate separately with the Mandali, none of whom was ill except for Adi Jr. They opened the door, and Walu folded her hands in namaskar, greeting, to Baba, but did not say a single word. She was sitting up in bed and looked quite ill. Masi looked even worse. Mehera said, "Baba, seeing them, I'm feeling more sick. Let me go and lie down." And she was taken back to her room. Mehera was not the type of person who could easily tolerate any sickness or affliction, however minor. And she was rarely ill, even with the cold. For years, she had been living in the austere but rarefied atmosphere of Meherabad Hill, and now felt miserable before setting foot in the comparatively luxurious West. To be subjected to such violent nausea for so many days was a horrendous experience. But undoubtedly, Baba made her and the others go through this suffering on her first visit outside of India for some important work. But there was some relief when the boat landed for a short time in Aden on 4 August. Although the Eastern women did not disembark, that night Baba took the younger women on deck again. As soon as the boat stopped in Aden, I felt well, Mehera said. We had a drink of something on deck. It was very nice, seated around Baba. The lights of the shops on shore were reflected in the sea. It was nighttime, cool and beautiful. We sat in chairs under the stars with Baba and watched the lights out on the coast. Chanji noted in his diary that day, arrive Aden, 3 p.m., sail at 8 p.m., ladies on deck in the night, and Kaka and Chanji sitting on passage for watch like beggars. After the ship left Aden and reached the Red Sea, the weather changed. The sea grew calmer and the ship did not pitch as much. Mehera's health, as she said, improved. She was no longer nauseated all the time, but something else now prevented her from enjoying the voyage. It became so hot that she wondered which was worse, the heat or the seasickness. The heat was more than they had ever experienced. Even at the height of Indian summers, there was no breeze, and they felt suffocated in their non-air conditioned cabin. Not wishing to ruin her expensive outfits with perspiration, Narina had thrown off her clothes and was walking around wrapped in a white sheet like a sari. "Dear girls," she said, "aren't you all feeling hot?" "We're dying of heat," Mehera said. "How is it in your cabin?" "It's like a living hell," Narina responded irritably. "There's no breeze in there either." But they could see land from their ship, and they stuck their heads out the porthole to watch, fascinated, as the Arabs rode camels across the desert. Mani's diary continues. August 5 went up on first class deck from 4:25 to 5:30 a.m., groping in the dark to climb the endless stairs, but very lovely up there with the bracing wind. The Red Sea was hot, rough weather, portholes closed, played cards and other games in the cabin, some of us sick. August 6 went up on deck 4:10 a.m. and reached Port Sudan at 12 p.m. August 7 went up on deck 2:30 a.m. and slept there till 4:45. Every day, Mehera not well, in spite of pills and things Baba gave. On 8 August, they arrived at the Suez Canal at 6 a.m., where they stayed for 3 hours. Special arrangements were made for the women to see the canal from the first class deck. When the ship passed through the canal and entered the still calmer waters of the Mediterranean, the sea stopped pitching altogether, and Mehera perked up even more. Baba came to her cabin and told her, "No, you must eat something substantial, something nourishing to give you strength." He suggested chocolate ice cream and cold soda water. The stewardess was summoned, and Rano gave the order. When it arrived, Baba mixed it together, making a fizzy chocolate concoction. He handed it to Mehera and told her to drink it. I sat up in bed. I don't care for milk things, but I thought, Baba wants me to take it, so I will. It was ice cold and would be easy to digest. I was very thirsty, but I guess I am allergic to milk. I drank the whole thing, but after not even a minute, it all came out. The others ran with the basin. It was terrible, and I felt so bad. Baba had given it to me with his own hands, and I couldn't keep it down. The only nice thing was that Baba was with me, sitting by my side. August 9, Mehera ill all night. August 10, weather much better. August 11, at 12, sighted Italy. At 2 p.m., Messina, and at 4 p.m., Stromboli volcano, smoking. As they were passing the Stromboli volcano, Narina became quite excited. She rushed to tell Baba, who pointed it out to the women from their portholes. The island volcano was not erupting at the time, but only smoking. All were eager to see it and crowded around the porthole. Baba continued to take them for a nighttime stroll, but whenever out of their cabin, they were always to look down. Since it was 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, most of the other passengers were fast asleep. No one really enjoyed the walks much, as they had to walk for what seemed like miles just to reach the upper decks. August 12, Mehera, feeling nice today, sighted Corsica at 1:40, Sardinia on other sides, did packing. The ship was due to dock at Marseille at 6 a.m. on 13 August. But before they arrived, Baba gave some last-minute instructions about disembarking. They were to follow him quickly off the gangway and to keep up with him. Delia would be waiting with the car to pick them up. They left the ship wearing their saris, and Mani and Khorshid encircled Mehera. On the dock, Baba turned to see that everyone was present. Naja was lurching awkwardly from side to side. "Where is Naja going?" he asked, irritated. Naja clutched onto Rano, who explained, "Baba, she's land sick." On the ship, Naja had been all right, eating to her heart's content and enjoying herself. "The earth and road are going up and down," she said. "I feel as if the buildings are going to collapse on top of me." But since Baba wished to avoid the crowds, he told her to hurry up. Rano led Naja to the car, and when all were in, they were driven to a hotel before catching a train to Cannes. And scroll down. Oh, that's it.
Yes,
Mani,
a bit more.
yeah. Mani's diary notes, August 13th, reached Marseille at 6 a.m. and left boat 7:40 for hotel. Went off to see zoo at 9:10. Had splendid lunch at hotel and left by train for Cannes, second class. After a very pleasant journey of about 3.5 hours, we reached Cannes, Shelley House, where we stopped for 2 nights and 1 day, an ancient fairy tale house full of mysterious echoes and antique furniture and a spacious garden.
There's some nice pictures of Baba and Mara.
Beautiful. On a picnic at Cannes, France, 1937.
And I don't know what this is. Mara in Meherabad. I wish I could turn it, but I don't know how. And when beloved returned from the West, he wore a summer suit and looked so handsome. Looked very smart and very handsome. He looked like the captain of the ship. Okay. Picnic at Cannes. Okay, I think we should stop here. If everyone agrees.
Sure. Good idea. Good place.
Yeah.
The new chapter.
You don't want to read for 5 minutes or so, Teen?
Oh, well, I could. Kitty had arrived in Cannes ahead of the group and arranged for Shelley House. We had a nice place, Mara remembered. Secluded from the road with a lovely private garden and a glassed-in porch. We were so tired we just wanted to eat and rest. But first, bedrooms had to be allocated. They had a look around the house and found the bedrooms upstairs too fancy. 2 smaller bedrooms were just right. Mani occupied the tinier room meant for one person, and Khorshid and Mara the other one. Nadia still felt ill. She stayed where she was, quietly ensconced on the stairs with her eyes closed. Kitty and Ranu helped her to her feet and put her to bed in one of the downstairs bedrooms, which they thought would be better for her. But she could hardly move and was sick all night, but she recovered the next day. After dinner, Mara and the others went to their bedrooms, where Mara opened Baba's small bag and kept everything ready for his morning wash and shave. After unpacking, they made their bed and put out the light. But there was no night light. Now, where was the switch? We were lost, dodging the furniture, bumping into things. At last, we found a switch. Though I never liked such bright light burning, we left the light on and went to sleep. The beds were soft, and they slept well on their first night in Europe. But in the morning, when Baba came and washed his face and had breakfast, he told them, "Don't get completely settled. Don't unpack everything." According to Chanji, Baba did not find the house suitable for the life of an Indian ladies who had observed silence for years. Seclusion, a life of seclusion. Sorry. According to Chanji, Baba did not find the house suitable for a life of seclusion the Indian ladies had observed for years. He wanted them to continue, while Narina, with her influential connections, was arranging for another house. Mara and the others passed the time on the balcony where they could see the garden. After a few hours, Baba came back and said they had found a better house named Villa Caldana. They drove over to look at it. It too was situated on a hill, only this time with a lovely view of the ocean. The house was lovely, Mara recalled. It was a 3-story building, spacious and airy. On the top was a terrace with a roof over it. And the side of the hill had terraced gardens. Baba never liked being in a congested area. The garden at Shelley House was secluded, but it could be entered by anyone from the street also. Since Villa Caldana was built on the side of a hill, with a vast unobstructed view, it did not have such easy access. I think I remember reading this. Do you remember it?
I do remember reading this.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the first time around, Tina.
Yeah, I've read it several times, so yeah.
No, I think it was more recently.
Mm.
360. Okay. Well, we'll take up there next week.
Rosalie, I'm